Who are you?
Who am I? I don't know.
I am Vietnamese.
I'm a brown student.
I am a woman.
I am a straight ally.
I feel as though I am a citizen of the world.
I'm a combination of my upbringing in Baton Rouge.
I try to define myself maybe by the types of people I hang around.
On university, golf team member. I don't really know how to elaborate that. I didn't realize that was the question.
An enthusiastic, happy student who loves Brown.
I don't know. I think I'm just a girl trying to figure life out.
In the spring of 2010, 10 Brown University students came together to form a class that explored how people develop their identities and what it means to engage in cross-cultural dialogue. This video documents these students' journeys in defining identity and diversity through interviews with Brown University students, faculty, and administrators. The film also takes a look at how these students created and participated in a group independent study project, also known as a GISP, in which they explored cross-culturally or spent some time thinking about their own identity. This is exploring identity through diversity.
Yeah.
How we created the class, it just started off with Dean Kisa showing us a video that another school did about exploring other identities. And we thought, you know, Brown is all about diversity, is all about engaging in difference. We questioned why Brown doesn't have something like this. So it was us to jump into something, creating a class that, first of all, taught us about what identity is, how people have multiple identities, and also lessons about going out and exploring identities that you don't hold on to as well.
I started off in the beginning facilitating, and then I think maybe after the second or third class it moved on to the format where students took the role in leadership and facilitating the class discussions.
Wait, guys, we need to find this. What is multiculturalism?
No, but I think it's an honest question to ask, and I think that's great. What is multiculturalism? Like, what is it?
What is identity? Or
even what is diversity? Because you hear it thrown around by every...
I'm Valerie Petit-Wilson. I am the Associate Provost and Director of Institutional Diversity here at Brown. I would define diversity as not only being about different types of people or different colors of people, but people who have different points of view and who have had different experiences, and together they can develop other experiences that will allow them to go into the world and help solve the problems that the world faces. We want to make certain that at Brown that diversity is a core value that everyone understands and everyone knows about and can learn through diversity.
I thought it would be a great idea for students to identify communities or projects, whether it be self-growth or external growth, and to kind of combine sort of some academic or intellectual awareness of issues or communities with some personal exploration, and then culminating in the video.
For my action plan, I was investigating masculinity on campus.
I decided to explore sexual identity.
I chose to explore the topic of dating in the Asian American community at Brown.
So I chose to explore the Native American community at Brown.
My action plan wanted to look at the intersections of race and religion.
So Clay and I found it really effective to collaborate together on our action plan. We decided to create a discussion group about social class, which we entitled Social Classmates.
For me, I'm not anywhere near home right now, so I'm on my own, and like I'm not with my family. I'm not, going to church every Sunday with my family. I'm not doing those things that I used to do with my family. So I have more freedom to question my beliefs and question my activities, question where I belong. So I feel like it has to do with just being on your own.
And when I came to Brown is when social class kind of became more apparent to me. I got to see, kind of because when you're in close contact and you're with a lot of different people, the differences become a lot more apparent.
People had this other identity that I could never really identify with, that I wanted to know more about, that I almost wanted to have and claim my own, but it was just, I just couldn't.
And the reason why I decided to explore sexual identity was because it was something that always was assumed in my family and in my larger extended family as well. There was no questions about what you are or who you are or where you came from. It was always like, Varina, you know what you are, and that's it.
Well, I started off by speaking with the Muslim chaplain at Brown, and from there I began to attend many of the Muslim Student Association meetings.
We wanted there to be equal representation from all social classes, and I thought this was going to be a very important part of our group because we wanted it that everyone would feel comfortable speaking in the group. We didn't want to have one social class dominate so that the other people of, say, the lower social class may feel more uncomfortable speaking in the group.
I started planning and doing publicity for the Native Americans at Brown annual Spring Thaw Powwow. People took a lot of ownership over the powwow. It was a community gathering, and it was a community building event.
I felt like very weird at a couple of times, and then like especially going to just mustering up the courage for me to go to church. Throughout the entire time I was just kind of like wondering whether or not I felt like I actually belonged or if I was almost like an outsider intruding into this, you know, almost sacred community.
It reminded me of having conversations with white students about whiteness, where just like a lot of people have just taken that identity for granted because it's sort of a dominant identity. It's not discussed so much.
It was a challenge just to look into yourself, just to take the time to sit back and reflect and think. I feel like a lot of times, like you're in college, you have classes, you have meetings, you have activities. You don't have a lot of time just to sit back and think like, who am I? And what does that contribute to what I'm doing here for the 4 years I'm at Brown? And also, what is it going to do, how is it going to affect me after?
In the beginning, I used to always think that, oh yeah, you always have to have a label. You know, you always have to have somewhere to identify yourself, because if you don't have a label, then what are you? You know, you're just some person in limbo. But then, you know, after this whole experience, I've learned that, you know, I don't really have to have a strong religious identity because I have all these other identities to kind of complement who I am.
Through learning about the struggle in other people's lives, I've kind of come to recognize it in my own. And that was cool. It was really cool. It's a really roundabout way to learn about yourself.
I think that being aware of all these differences make identity exploration possible for me, because I think I can't go into a conversation with people who have a range of identities coming from any background if I'm not constantly present that there's a difference and that each journey doesn't look the same. And that shouldn't be, I guess, a deterrent from exploring these conversations. I think it's a prerequisite for exploring these conversations and exploring these different identities.
If anyone ever has a question about exploring their own identity or wanting to go about exploring an identity that they don't necessarily correlate with, there's just a ton of resources on campus to go about doing that.
I think we take it for granted that this bubble is so accepting and at very least like very critical and thought-provoking, whereas like when you go back home it's kind of hard to hear like racial slurs or to hear just like things that we would consider ignorant, but they're coming from people that we love and have known our whole lives. So that's kind of like a big cultural shock to me, especially when I go back home.
I think we have to be comfortable with difference. You know, many there are those people who sort of fear difference. So if we have more avenues where we all come together as a community and really deal with these issues, you know, very openly and very, very frank, I really think we will get to a point where some of these so-called threatening things might not be so threatening after all.
Why are we sitting
So this is just a good conversation about like, how's the GISP affected you?
I was really intrigued by the different identities that we touched upon. Race, class, gender, religion. Those are all like very close to my heart. I feel like being in college, you question those things a lot. And I liked being able to speak about those things in an academic way?
So it's hard, it's scary in the beginning, but once you get into it, yeah, I've been really into it. Like, my homework is interviewing people and reading about things that I actually like to read about. So I loved it. I love this experience. It's hard, but it was so worth it.
It was a unique environment to have a whole semester where the same group of people gathered together and combined personal work with group work. Were responsible for your learning in that class. It really was up to you how much you engaged in the action plan, how much time you spent journaling, and I think that self-directed learning is really important and also unique.
I think it's important also because you're at Brown here to get an education, but why not also get an education that explores who you are? But through exploring other communities, you can take an Africana studies class or a religious studies class or gender or sexuality studies class, learning about other people, but at the same time learning about yourself. It's a great opportunity to mix your academics with your personal growth.
Through this GISP, students were able to expand their definition of diversity as well as challenge themselves academically and personally to engage in cross-cultural exploration. We hope that these students' experiences will also encourage you to understand and explore difference, becoming involved in diversity to learn more about who you are.